You exist. That's not random. And the fact that you think it might be tells us something important about the conditioning you've received. We've been taught to see ourselves as accidents in a cold, indifferent cosmos, statistical flukes, biological machines running programs written by evolutionary trial and error. But there's a problem with that story, and the problem is consciousness itself. The very thing that allows you to contemplate your own existence doesn't fit neatly into the materialist framework we've been handed. So let me ask you directly, what if the universe didn't stumble into awareness through you? What if awareness was always part of the equation? This isn't mysticism, this is pattern recognition. And the pattern suggests something that makes the scientific establishment deeply uncomfortable, that consciousness isn't a late-stage accident in cosmic history, but a fundamental property woven into the structure of reality from the beginning. The clue you keep missing is that you're looking for consciousness to emerge from matter, when the evidence increasingly suggests that matter might be emerging from something more primary, something that looks suspiciously like mind. Let's start with the obvious problem. You are a localized point of awareness inside a 3-pound organ made of fat and protein. This organ operates through electrochemical signals, firing neurons, neurotransmitter exchanges. Standard biology. But here's what doesn't add up. Nowhere in that physical process do we find an explanation for subjective experience. We can map every neural correlate of consciousness. We can identify which brain regions light up when you see red, feel pain, or remember your childhood. But we cannot explain why those physical processes feel like something. This is called the hard problem of consciousness, and it's not a gap in our knowledge that better brain scans will eventually fill. It's a categorical problem. It suggests we're asking the wrong question. The standard materialist model assumes consciousness is produced by the brain the way the liver produces bile. It's an output, a byproduct of complex computation. But this model has never actually explained the transition from objective physical process to subjective felt experience. And after decades of neuroscience, cognitive science, and philosophy of mind, we're no closer to solving it. Which should tell you something. When a paradigm consistently fails to explain the central phenomenon it claims to address, you're not dealing with a gap in data, you're dealing with a flawed framework. Now consider this, the universe is not random in its structure, it's highly ordered. From quantum fields to galactic superclusters, we see patterns, symmetries, mathematical regularities. The laws of physics are consistent across billions of light years. Constants like the speed of light, the gravitational constant, the mass of elementary particles, these aren't fluctuating, they're stable. And they're balanced in such a way that complex structures can form. Stars can ignite, planets can cool, chemistry can elaborate, life can emerge. This is called the fine-tuning problem, and it's not a religious argument. It's an observation that the parameters of physical reality appear calibrated to permit increasing complexity. What does this have to do with consciousness? Everything, because consciousness is the most complex phenomenon we know. It's not just complex in the sense of having many parts, it's complex in the sense of integrating information in a unified field of experience. You don't experience your visual cortex separately from your auditory cortex. You experience a unified world, a singular point of view. And this integration suggests that whatever consciousness is, it's not just an emergent property of random physical arrangement. It's something that appears when matter organizes itself in particular ways. But here's the leap. If the universe is structured to permit the organization of matter into conscious systems, then consciousness isn't accidental to the cosmos. It's implied by it. This is where we need to talk about teleology. The idea that the universe has direction, purpose. Not in the sense of a bearded man in the sky with a plan, but in the sense that the cosmos exhibits a tendency toward increasing complexity, increasing organization, and increasing awareness. Look at the timeline. You start with hydrogen and helium in the early universe, simple atoms. Over billions of years, gravity pulls matter together into stars. Stars fuse heavier elements. Those stars explode, scattering complex atoms into space. Those atoms form planets. On at least one planet, chemistry becomes biology. Biology becomes nervous systems. Nervous systems become brains. Brains become minds capable of reflecting on their own existence. That's not a random walk, that's a directionality. An arrow pointing from simplicity toward complexity, from unconsciousness toward awareness. Now, the conventional response is that this is just how entropy works. The universe is winding down, and complexity is a local temporary reversal in the general trend toward disorder. But that explanation is insufficient, because while the universe as a whole may be increasing in entropy, the pockets of order, stars, planets, living systems, conscious beings, are not random anomalies. They're the most interesting parts of the story. And if you're trying to understand what the universe is doing, you don't ignore the most interesting parts. You pay attention to them. You ask why matter keeps organizing itself into systems capable of knowing. Let's go deeper. Quantum mechanics tells us something strange about observation. The act of measurement collapses the wave function. Before observation, particles exist in superposition in multiple states simultaneously. After observation, they localize into definite states. This isn't philosophy, this is experimental fact. And it suggests that consciousness, or at least observation, plays a role in actualizing physical reality. Now, most physicists try to avoid the implications of this by claiming that observation just means interaction with a measuring device, not conscious observation. But that's semantic evasion, because ultimately the data from that measuring device has to be observed by a conscious being for it to mean anything. The universe without observers is a universe of potentiality without actuality, and that should disturb you, because it means reality and awareness are not separate, they're entangled. This brings us to the participatory universe model suggested by physicist John Wheeler. Wheeler proposed that the universe is not a stage on which consciousness appears, but a phenomenon that requires consciousness to complete itself. Observers aren't passive recipients of an objective external world. They're active participants in the manifestation of that world. This doesn't mean you're creating reality with your thoughts in some shallow New Age sense. It means that reality as we know it, solid, definite, measurable, may require the presence of conscious observation to become real in that way. Without consciousness, you have potentiality. With consciousness, you have actuality. Now let's apply this to your own existence. You weren't randomly assembled. The conditions that led to your formation were precisely constrained by physical laws that permit complexity. The atoms in your body were forged in stars. The molecules that make up your cells are the result of billions of years of chemical evolution. The neural architecture that generates your consciousness is the product of evolutionary processes that favor organisms capable of responding intelligently to their environment. You are not outside the universe looking in. You are the universe looking at itself. This isn't poetry, this is structural analysis. The cosmos has folded back on itself in such a way that it can know itself through you. And here's the clue you keep missing. If consciousness were truly random, if it were truly an accidental byproduct, it would be far more variable than it is. But human consciousness across cultures, across history, exhibits consistent features. We all experience time as flowing from past to future. We all experience a unified field of awareness. We all distinguish between self and other. We all use language to symbolize and transmit complex information. These are not random traits. They're structural features of what it means to be a conscious human being. And that consistency suggests that consciousness isn't invented fresh in each individual. It's instantiated. The universe knows how to make conscious beings, and it does so according to reliable principles. This is where we need to talk about information. Information is not reducible to matter or energy. Information is a third category. It's pattern. structure, relationship. And information can be instantiated in different substrates. The same information can exist in a book, in a hard drive, in a brain, in a conversation. The medium changes, but the pattern remains. Now apply this to consciousness. What if consciousness is information of a particular kind, self-referential information? Information that models itself, a system that not only processes data but knows that it's processing data. This is what separates you from a thermostat. Both are information processing systems, but only one has recursive self-awareness. If consciousness is a form of information, then it's not tied exclusively to biological brains. It's tied to certain organizational patterns, which means that any system capable of instantiating those patterns could be conscious. This has implications for artificial intelligence, for panpsychism, for the nature of reality itself. But more immediately, it has implications for how you understand your own mind. You're not a ghost in a machine. You're not a soul piloting a meat robot. You're a pattern, a highly organized, self-sustaining, self-aware pattern that the universe is capable of producing under the right conditions. And those conditions are not rare flukes. They're predictable outcomes of cosmic evolution. Now let's address the objection. If the universe is structured to produce consciousness, why is consciousness so fragile? Why does damage to the brain damage or destroy subjective experience? Doesn't that prove consciousness is just a brain function? No. It proves that consciousness requires a substrate, but requiring a substrate is not the same as being reducible to a substrate. Your television requires electricity and circuitry to function, but the signal it receives is not generated by the television. The television is a receiver, a translator, a localizer. Similarly, the brain may be the instrument through which consciousness interfaces with physical reality without being the source of consciousness itself. Damage the instrument, and the interface is disrupted. But that doesn't tell you anything about the fundamental nature of consciousness. This is the filter theory of consciousness, proposed by philosophers like Henri Bergson and William James. Consciousness is not produced by the brain. It's filtered through the brain. The brain constrains and focuses a larger field of awareness into the localized, individualized experience you call yourself. This model explains anomalies that materialism struggles with: near-death experiences, altered states, the sense of unity with the cosmos reported by mystics and psychedelic users. These aren't hallucinations, they're glimpses of consciousness less filtered, less constrained by the neurological apparatus that normally keeps you locked into a specific point of view. And here's where it gets interesting. If consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, then accessing it doesn't require building it from scratch in each new brain. It requires tuning the brain to the right frequency. Evolution isn't generating consciousness. Evolution is generating receivers capable of translating universal consciousness into local, embodied experience. Your brain is not creating your awareness. Your brain is shaping your awareness into the specific form required for survival and reproduction in this particular environment. But the raw capacity for awareness was always there. You're not a cosmic accident. You're a cosmic inevitability. Consider the role of language. Language is not just communication. Language is the mechanism by which consciousness becomes reflexive. Through language, you can think about thinking. You can represent the world symbolically and manipulate those symbols to generate new understanding. You can transmit ideas across time and space. You can coordinate behavior with others at scales that no other species achieves. Language turns individual consciousness into collective intelligence. And this is not random. The capacity for language is encoded in human neurology. Specific brain regions dedicated to grammar, syntax, semantics. Children acquire language effortlessly if exposed during critical developmental windows. This isn't learned from scratch. It's activated. The template is already there. Now zoom out. The universe starts as an undifferentiated field of energy. Through symmetry breaking and phase transitions, it differentiates into particles, forces, structures. Matter clumps into stars and galaxies. Stars create heavy elements. Planets form. Life emerges. Life evolves nervous systems. Nervous systems evolve brains. Brains evolve language. Language enables culture. Culture enables technology. Technology enables beings capable of reflecting on the entire process. That's a trajectory, and trajectories are not random. They're expressions of underlying dynamics. What are those dynamics? Complexity theory offers one answer. Systems far from equilibrium, given energy flow, spontaneously organize into higher-order structures. This is how hurricanes form, how cells self-organize, how economies emerge. Order arises from chaos, not through external design, but through the intrinsic properties of the system itself. The universe is such a system, and consciousness is one of the highest-order structures it can produce. Not through random chance, but through the lawful unfolding of its own internal logic. But there's a deeper level. The physicist David Bohm proposed that reality has two orders: the explicate order, which is the manifest world of things and events, and the implicate order, which is a deeper enfolded dimension from which the explicate order unfolds. In the implicate order, everything is interconnected. Separation is an illusion of the explicate level. Consciousness, in this model, is not something that happens inside isolated brains. Consciousness is a feature of the implicate order, projecting itself into the explicate order through individuated beings. You're not a separate fragment. You're a localized expression of a unified field. This connects to non-locality in quantum mechanics. Entangled particles remain correlated across arbitrary distances. Change the state of one, and the state of the other changes instantaneously, regardless of separation. This doesn't violate relativity because no information is transmitted, but it does violate our intuition that objects are fundamentally separate. At the quantum level, the universe is a web of relationships, not a collection of isolated things. And if consciousness is grounded in the quantum level, as some theories propose, then consciousness itself may be non-local. Your awareness may be less confined to your skull than you assume. Let's talk about time. You experience time as linear, past, present, future. Causation flows in one direction, but physics tells a different story. At the fundamental level, the equations of physics are time-symmetric. They work equally well running forward or backward. The arrow of time is not a fundamental feature of the universe. It's an emergent phenomenon related to entropy and the second law of thermodynamics. But entropy is a statistical concept, not an absolute one. In small systems, time reversibility is observable. So what does this mean for consciousness? It means that the rigid separation between past, present, and future may be a construct of your perceptual apparatus, not a feature of reality itself. Consciousness doesn't happen in time. Consciousness experiences time. But what consciousness is, fundamentally, may be outside the temporal framework entirely. This is why meditation and psychedelics can produce experiences of timelessness. You're not hallucinating, you're accessing a mode of consciousness less constrained by the temporal filtering your brain normally imposes. You're experiencing reality as it is at a deeper level, where past and future are not separate from the present but co-present in an eternal now. This isn't mystical. This is what relativity predicts. Space-time is a four-dimensional block. The distinction between past, present, and future is a persistent illusion, as Einstein himself noted. So where does this leave you? You are not a random accident in an indifferent universe. You are a highly ordered structure through which the universe becomes aware of itself. You are the cosmos localized into a point of view. Your existence was not improbable. It was inevitable given the structure and dynamics of reality. The universe is not indifferent to consciousness. The universe produces consciousness as surely as it produces stars and galaxies. Consciousness is not an anomaly. It's the fulfillment of a cosmic tendency towards self-organization and self-awareness. And here's the final clue: meaning is not something you project onto an inherently meaningless universe. Meaning is intrinsic to the structure of experience. When you recognize pattern, when you grasp relationship, when you understand causation, you're participating in the universe's self-comprehension. Meaning is what happens when information recognizes itself, and you are information that has learned to recognize itself. That's not an accident, that's the point. The question is not why you exist. The question is what you do with the fact that you exist. Because if the universe went to all this trouble to produce a localized point of awareness capable of reflecting on its own existence, then that awareness has responsibility, not in a moral sense imposed from outside, but in a structural sense. You are the universe's way of knowing itself. If you numb that awareness, if you distract it with triviality, if you waste it on fear and avoidance, you're not just harming yourself. You're obstructing a cosmic process. The universe didn't create you randomly. It created you inevitably, through billions of years of increasing complexity and organization, and the clue you keep missing is that you're not separate from that process. You're not observing it from outside, you're inside it. You're part of it, you are it. You are it. And once you recognize that, once you see that your consciousness is not a fluke but a feature, then the question becomes, what is this consciousness for? What does the universe want to do with itself through you? That question has no answer I can give you. Because the answer is what you create through the choices you make, the attention you give, the awareness you cultivate. But the question itself is the clue. The fact that you can ask it means you're participating in something larger than yourself. The fact that you can reflect on your own existence means existence has achieved something extraordinary through you. You're not random, you're inevitable. And what you do with that inevitability is the story you're writing right now.